Hello, everyone. This is Shred's Takes before 4th of July edition. I'm with Alex Shammerizadi. So, again, for those who don't know, had him a while back. He was on my podcast, talked a lot about soccer, big Boston Celtics fan as well. So, we'll be talking about a couple of things today. And first of all, I just want to say, Alex, always a pleasure seeing you. Thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast and look forward to talking to you today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think third, maybe fourth time now. So, getting the hang of these podcasts. Happy to be here. So, been a long time. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And so let's get started with some football topics today. And that is obviously for a lot of American folks, it's Messi going to Inter Milan. The contract looks like it's going to be about between 50 and $60 million a year. And the deal, as I just read on the Associated Press today, just got basically finalized as of 7 hours ago. And what are your thoughts initially on it? My initial thoughts are, I think it's just going to be too easy of a game for him. But from a guy who covers the sport and played the sport, what is your initial thoughts about Messi now playing in the MLS?
Like that is crazy to me. I'm not really, stoked about it. I got a lot of thoughts going in a lot of different directions. Obviously, let me start by clearing it up. Messi is the GOAT. There's no debate. And if there was a debate, the World Cup ended it. I love Ronaldo. He's second place by a country mile. Nobody is even close to him, but Messi's above him. So, going along with that, I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised Messi moved. I didn't think he had a good fit with PSG. I'm wearing their jersey. Not really a big fan, but I got Neymar on the back. Big Neymar supporter. PSG wasn't the right fit. I mean, he went there because he had no other option. Because basically, with players like Messi, Neymar, all the big names that really don't move within Europe to smaller teams than say a Barcelona, Real Madrid. There's only a few teams that can actually pay the salary of Messi, Neymar, Ronaldo, whatnot. Who else? So I think a few years back when he went to PSG, it was more of a collapse by Barcelona than it was Messi saying I want a new challenge or anything. From my understanding, he wanted to stay, and so that was like the first domino that fell. He obviously couldn't go back to Barcelona because when he left, Barcelona tried to sign a million players to make up for the hole he left, and they ended up spending a lot of money and they don't get the returns. They haven't really been the same since. PSG was a debacle. Messi, I mean, you can tell, right? Like he didn't care as much. He didn't have a love for the club he was playing for, partly because they're kind of just all about money. PSG, not really the most historic club. They've been the kings of France essentially by buying it. A lot of teams, Saint Etienne, Marseille, a lot of teams have a lot more history than them. So it's a debacle. He leaves. I was not expecting him to come to the MLS. I don't know his age for sure. I think he's 35, 36. He might be a little
36,
older.
36.
36. Yeah. And I think he just had his birthday. So either he's 37 now or he just
Just
turned
turned
30.
36. Yeah.
I mean, that's young for the GOAT. Um, no, I'm shocked. I think it's a really great thing that's happening for the MLS, for American soccer overall. I think, there's so many different facets that it's going to improve. First of all, viewership, sponsorship. Um, I'm pretty sure. So you said it got finalized 7 hours ago, the move?
Yeah, they said that like not all parts of the deal were put together, but yeah, 7 hours ago it said that the deal was pretty much set.
Right. Yeah, like it's happening. Like, I mean, I saw a few Twitter clips of like people seeing Messi in Miami, like he's there for sure. So already within the past week, Sergio Busquets, a legend at Barcelona, one of his favorite teammates, has already moved. One of his old coaches from Barcelona has moved. He'll coach, or maybe he'll head the youth teams or something at Inter Miami. Um, so already you're seeing a lot of just people from Spain moving basically to follow Messi. Um, so there's going to be a lot more you know parts of the puzzle following him. There's going to be a lot more players, coaches, and ultimately what's most exciting is fans coming over. I think it'll grow the MLS. I think he did choose the literal worst team, I think, in the league. I don't know if you've looked at the standings. They're definitely last place in their conference. I'm not sure if they're better than the last place team in the other conference, but they're not very good. That's obviously going to change because one, he's really good, and two, people are just going to want to play with him. Um, Overall, good for the leagues. For Messi, I think not so good. I'm hoping that he has something else up his sleeve because I'm not ready to like watch him stop playing in Europe in the Champions League. But I mean, I'm gonna watch him wherever he goes. I'm glad he didn't go to Saudi Arabia. I'm not really watching Ronaldo in Saudi Arabia. I love Ronaldo, don't get me wrong, but that's just not really a league I'm interested in. So can't catch a game. Ticket prices went up too high in America, but I'm excited to watch him. I think as a player in America, and I think a lot of my teammates and friends will agree on this. Like we just don't know really how good the MLS standard is. I mean, we have an idea. We obviously know a lot of players that we've played with that we thought we were either better than or worse than that have now made it pro in the MLS. But we just don't know. So I'm excited to see him, play against other MLS players and just kind of see how serious he'll take it, um, and just how his skill transfers to the MLS because I think there's a lot of uncertainty. But overall, exciting. I'm excited. Like whatever, like, it happened. It's over. I'll follow him where he goes. It's all good.
I think, from Messi's standpoint, I agree with you on that front. In that, again, I think he has still a lot left in the tank. The World Cup proved that immensely, and yeah, I mean, the guy was just, still one of the greatest. He's still one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. But also, again, he's one of the most skilled soccer players. And I'm not like, again,
Mm-hmm.
for the viewers who are watching, I'm not a soccer guy. Like I watch the World Cup when it
Not
happens,
far off.
yeah, but I mean, when it becomes fun for a viewer that's not devoted to the sport when you see someone that's so great. But I think the one thing that I think it can benefit, and maybe you can tell me if you agree or disagree with this, I think it really will help the youth programs in America, especially for men's soccer, because you see in women's soccer where it's really good. That's why the women's soccer team is just excellent across the board. I'm not saying the men's soccer programs are not like that, because I know the academies do a great job of trying to do that. But again, trying to when you bring Messi in, again, that's going to incentivize more players to want to play soccer that are Messi fans and try to get that whole started. And, again, that's going to get more for the academies and more good talent and more chances to develop these players into becoming something where they can play in the MLS or play overseas or do something right like that. And, I think the academies already for soccer are a really good thing because I have some friends, obviously some guys like you, like yourself and other guys who played at Amherst, but there's also some guys who I also know that played like at Princeton and stuff like that as well, who went through the academy stuff. And I think that if that just continues, having a guy like Messi can help that thing grow and something better. Do you agree with that, or do you think that like maybe it's a double-edged sword that it's still harder to tell if it can make a huge difference?
No, you'll see a direct impact. You'll see a huge growth spurt. I mean, you won't see it translate to the U.S. national team being better, but you will see a growth in culture. Um, I mean, it's Messi, right? So you're gonna learn very quickly. Pretty much everything he touches turns to gold. People will follow his example. People will. I mean, Inter Miami is going to improve. Like, not just because of him. Like I said earlier, like people are going to come and follow and not play in the same league as him, but play on the same team as him. And I don't know. I think the MLS has some sort of rule on the amount of international players you can have on a single team. And I've never really understood that rule. That might actually become a good rule because obviously, if there's a limit to how many internationals can play on one team, like not everyone can join Inter Miami and play with him. Um, but no, for the kids, it's a big deal. Like, I mean, can you imagine, the day that those Inter Miami youth players, no matter what age, I mean, even the players on the team, like the day they had when they found out Messi was seriously joining, because there were a lot of rumors for this for maybe a few years, 2 3 years. Messi coming to MLS, is he going to go back to Argentina and play? Is he going to stay in Europe? Like, it's real. He's coming. It's happened. It's like, I mean, there's no better dream than you're grinding, you're working hard, you're trying to progress up the ranks for your youth academy, and the reward is part of it is that Messi's in that first team, you know? So um, you'll see a spike in motivation, a bit more culture, I hope. I'm begging. Um, and yeah, I mean, hopefully, hopefully he can shine some light to some of these U.S. coaches on not how to coach, but how to respect youth development and not. I feel like in the U.S. it's like, are you good enough to play for the national team or not? Like, I don't think college helps, but there's clearly a disconnect because I mean, you see the U.S. youth national teams are really good. Youth academies really good. There's a lot of great talent, a lot of great teams, a lot of great clubs in the U.S. at lower ages. But when you get to that 18 to 20, 23, 24 age, like there's a disconnect. The national team is never as good as their youth. You know, I mean, U.S. youth national teams, so you know, like U23 national team, whatever. Like they're really good. There's a lot of talent. They perform well. They perform well against international teams. The um, but the U.S. national team itself doesn't seem to do that. So clearly, there's a disconnect. Hopefully, Messi coming in whatever shape or form, some form of culture is maintained in that crucial development age. So I don't know. Definitely to answer your question in short. Sorry, I keep rambling because you bring up soccer, football, like can't. Um, some way, shape, or form, it's definitely going to improve. I don't know what it'll look like. I just know it's definitely improving. He's going to help a lot. Whether he probably doesn't even need to. Like I think he's just enjoying his family time in a nice location. But it's going to be really exciting. There's going to be direct impact. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think one thing I'll add on here just before we shift over to the Celtics a little bit is the one thing I really like with the idea of football itself, at least being around some guys who really follow the sport, is just how it look at. Like again, this is an obvious take, but it means so much to the world, and it would be cool to have that embrace of fan culture in America a little bit. I mean, just I talked to anyone who's went to a Premier League game or a Champions League game. Like the fans over there are just awesome, and and having that environment and having that love for something that is just like you're basically like living with like that team or that player and that stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm really excited to see what Messi can do, just because he's an icon and he's a guy that's really changed the sport and just changed the culture of soccer, football, whatever, in for the better. So I'm excited for that. But let's shift over to your Boston Celtics a little bit. You're a big Celtics fan, and talked to actually a bunch of Celtics fans actually post their season. It's been kind of who I've been getting on the podcast, which is kind of funny. But big news, obviously, Porzingis coming to Boston. You give up Marcus Smart, which I wrote about this for the company I work for, but I said that it's a mixed review trade in a sense that Porzingis, if stays healthy, is a great player. Gives you 23 and 10, almost 2 blocks a game, and he's really versatile offensively. So he'll improve your ability to be versatile offensively, and he does work with Tatum and Brown because you can use him in two-man actions and pick and roll or pick and pop. And he's a guy that also can defend space and bring you some rim protection, which you didn't have last year with Horford and the inconsistency with Robert Williams' health. So, the issue is, again, you gave up Marcus Smart, who I know for a lot of Boston fans, despite the fact that they love the guy, and sometimes get angry at his decision making, which I even as not a Boston fan myself, I get pissed at sometimes his decision making. I do think that for the Grizzlies, he's so good for guys like John Moran who are going through a lot of issues maturity wise. He's going to be like a godsend for that guy. But without that rambling, I said, what are your thoughts about the Porzingis trade? Pros, cons, do you like it? And are you ultimately really upset about losing Marcus Smart in that deal?
I'm really upset about losing Marcus Smart, but not from a basketball standpoint. Like 9 years, 10, I think it was 9 years, right? Like, I mean, no matter who that was going to be, and I'll get into Marcus Smart in a second, that was going to be hard losing, 9-year vet, someone you drafted, which I think is kind of the theme of why the team has stuck together. And I'm hoping this isn't the first domino to fall. because we had drafted Marcus Smart, we had drafted Robert Williams, we had drafted Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, a few others. Like we were building kind of a homegrown, culture, and I feel like Al Horford was like the grandfather or the dad that was tying it all together. But let me talk about Porzingis first. He does a lot of things, and his addition is going to do so many different things to this team. First of all, like you said, rim protection. That's big. I mean, personally, I think Al Horford, Robert Williams, phenomenal rim protection. But like you said, Al Horford is what, 30, 30,
36.
30. Wow. And he's not the GOAT. So like
It feels longer than that, though.
it's a little higher than it sounds. Yeah. No, but I think Al Horford's been great. I always joke, not joke. It's not a joke. It's very sad actually. But with one of my coworkers, that like, you never know when you're going to get your last game from Al. And we love Al. Boston loves Al. I mean, he went to Philly for a year and said no, like I'm coming right back. Comes right back, fits right back in like nothing changed, right? So the first thing it does, rim protection. Second thing, a little more rest. Like you said, Al's 36. Rob is injury prone. I mean, I think we scraped by this year pretty much by giving him limited minutes. Obviously, game 7, Tatum rolls his ankle on the first play, and Rob Williams is vomiting on the sideline for half the game. So, like,
Right.
personally, I think we're losing that game anyway. Kind of glad they got injured. It's a little like, you never know. But we didn't come to play that night. We weren't going to win game 7. Um, that was a tough one. Um, but giving Rob Williams, Al Horford a little more rest, fewer minutes through an 82 game season where, I mean, you kind of need to be the first seed. Like everyone's going to come into this next season thinking like, oh, who's going to challenge the Celtics? Like, no, the Bucks are going to challenge everyone. Their team is really good. Eric Spoelstra is probably, other than Popovich, maybe he's surpassed him just given the roster he has versus the Spurs. Probably the best coach in the NBA.
Oh, I think he is.
He's probably the best coach, right? Like I don't want to, put my foot down and say yes or no, but having seen what I saw, like I don't know how you
I'll put my foot down. He is the best coach in the NBA, and that's okay.
Sure.
That's not a hot take to say it.
No, I don't know how you get a team to defend so well with Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and Max Strus in there playing high mid. Like it makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good defenders. Like anyway, really impressive what he did, and he took, I mean, they were talented. The Heat were talented, but obviously on paper, like NBA, I feel like there's less upsets, right? Like it's more, for the most part, more than half the time, the better team on paper will win a 7 game series. That's kind of right. Really impressive what he did. The Celtics needed something other than like drive and kick or shoot threes. Like we need some sort of post game. And Al Horford used to have great post game. I remember when we had him with Kyrie, final shot of the game, we were using Kyrie as a decoy, going to Al Horford in the post, a little hook shot here and there. I mean, it wasn't the first option, but like it was a viable option.
Right. For all the good benefits Horford does, to be fair to interrupt, but like and this is not like a slight. When I said like he looks
Sure.
older than 36, it's not a slight. I think he does a lot of things really useful for your boss team. He can shoot the 3, great leadership, and he's a guy that can still defend really well. I mean, he defended Joel Embiid. He's defended Joel Embiid as good as any guy probably could defend him, and he really forced Joel Embiid into a lot of tough shots. But the reason I wanted to interrupt is I just wanted to ask this: is like, what is your this guy I want to say what is like. What do the Celtics lose in Marcus Smart, in your opinion? For me, I think it's just like a guy who, again, defensive grit and that stuff. But I think the big thing you lose in him is a guy that can hold Tatum and Brown accountable. So what I think has to happen now is Tatum and Brown need to really take that leadership role. They need to have like a real big step in being leaders for that team, because Porzingis isn't, for all the respect I have for Porzingis, because I'm a Knicks fan and we had Porzingis for a little while. He that's not really his role. And Horford's more of a lead by example type guy. He's more soft spoken. So they need like that vocal, fiery leader, which was Smart, right? And I think that's a loss. That's an upgrade substantially for the Grizzlies, who desperately need a veteran leader.
From Dylan Brooks to Marcus Smart, that's a big upgrade.
100%. But minus the tangent, what are you like? What do you think the Celtics lose in Marcus Smart? And because I ultimately don't think the Celtics win the championship with this move, and I'm sorry to tell you that, but I don't. I still think I still pick the Nuggets over them in a series just because I think that Porzingis' durability is a humongous question, and I know he played 65 games last year, but my thing is Smart really helped keep that group focused. And my two questions is, can Porzingis stay healthy the entire time? Because that's been a real big question mark, because we all know he's really talented, but is he going to stay healthy? And two, who's going to be the guy to step up in that leadership role and grab sense the team together and rally them around? Those are kind of the reasons why I think Marcus Smart leaving is a bad thing. So what say you to that?
Yeah, I think Marcus Smart leaving is a little worse than it looks for in the aspect that like you lose hard, tough love. You lose a little bit of hard leadership that's needed, especially with two, I can't say inexperienced anymore. The two Jays have been to the conference finals every year they played together except for one. Um, but like it hurts to lose Marcus Smart when Joe Mazzulla is your coach. And by the way, just for the record, I'm gonna stick with Joe Mazzulla, right? Like I think he's done a fine job. I mean, you got to remember he lost three assistant coaches during the year, right? And they all went on to be pretty good coaches elsewhere, good additions to coaching staff. He's not really going to give them tough love. Like he's going to give them, the honest, like your numbers are bad. Like here's where they could do better. Blah blah blah. We do need someone to be a leader. I love Grant Williams to be a leader. I love Al Horford to continue to be a leader. I don't know who else can do it. Like I think Brogdon's a good leader. I think he's a little quiet. Um, but here's what I think it does help. Late in games, and first of all, I'll just admit, Celtics fans are very quick to give Marcus Smart a lot of blame, and rightly so sometimes. But because we idolize Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, we prioritize Jason Tatum over Jaylen Brown, which I think is a little disrespectful. That was Jaylen Brown's first bad series, pretty much in his career when it mattered, right?
Yeah,
Like
no, I would agree with
people are
that
quick to
100%.
forget Tatum's first really bad series was in the NBA Finals,
Mm-hmm.
and that was not good. That was like really like Jaylen Brown was still, I don't know, whatever. Not going to get into that.
We can
Um,
get into that though.
I don't know your answer. We need to find leadership somewhere. I heard Brad Stevens say he has the green light to make a few more changes. We'll see. What hurts the most about the Marcus Smart trade, and I have two more points on Marcus Smart, is one, knowing that we had Brogdon, and I love Brogdon. I mean, I'm happy to keep him, but like I think I'd choose Smart over Brogdon for this group of players. Knowing that Brogdon, the trade was accepted with the Clippers, and then they were like, we don't trust his health, right? At the last second, like that hurt. Like Brogdon's straight up for Porzingis. Brad Stevens is a magician. He pulls that off. I'm ecstatic. Derek White playing more. Derek White's clutch numbers.
I
That could be something to look at. That could
I
be something to look
I
at.
like Derek White a lot. Really like Derek.
Really like Derek White, and
He's
he
the only
grew
one
up.
in Game 7 that showed any sort of
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
positive force. Like he almost got you guys to get back in the game, right? So
Right.
I like Derek White a lot.
I think we're gonna have to figure out a closing lineup, but I think we always felt like we had to play Marcus Smart in the closing lineup, and I don't think he was the best closer. I think he's one of the best defenders overall, maybe one of the best smaller defenders as well. I think towards the end of his time in Boston, people were enjoying going at him, and it was elevating their game a little bit. I mean, in the Miami series, he did not defend very well. I mean, no one did, but he especially was not the Marcus Smart we were used to. So I think clutch lineup, Smart out. Derek White, I don't really see Brogdon in there. Derek White, maybe Horford and Porzingis. I don't know. You've got five shooters, right?
That's probably what I would think the starting lineup and closing lineup would be, just because,
Right?
right?
Yeah. Robert
You have
Williams off the bench
you
is
have
great.
you have all five of your best offensive options, so to speak, and maybe not Horford, but at least you have two guys who can defend, and then three guys. Actually, no, you have five guys who can kind of defend, because all of them can defend.
Yeah. I mean, we've got enough guys that can defend. Like, we're just gonna have to figure it out. And I mean, I hate to like be really nice to them. Like they have time to figure it out, Like we're obviously gonna be a team that's going to challenge in some like, no matter what round we go out, and if we go out, by the way, I do think we're going to win it. Um, like we're going to be a team to watch. So I think the regular season is going to be about hopefully securing some form of home advantage. Although maybe this season, playoff season, showed it'd be better to be on the road. That was the most frustrating thing. You lose what, three home games in a series?
Yeah.
My gosh. And Miami's not great at home. I mean, they were good, but like I personally don't think they're great at home. I think we love playing in Miami.
I mean, Denver won two of their four games, and I mean they took 3-1 lead by winning them both in Miami. But Denver's just really good. But
Yeah, Denver 2 for 2 on the road. Celtics 2 for 3 on the road. Celtics won 3 games on the road against Miami last year in the Eastern Conference Final. Like I think we just love playing on the road. Game 6 Milwaukee, Game 6 76ers, Game 6 Atlanta.
mm-hmm.
But I feel like that stems from maturity. Like our two best players, and they're definitely our two best players, like feel too much pressure from the stadium, from the city, from the expectations, from knowing that they can win a championship if they just play smart. So I'm hoping this is the last thing I'll say about Marcus Smart. Sorry, this looped all around. I'm not a very concise speaker, but I'm hoping
It's all
Marcus
good.
Smart leaving is like sending those two off to start their life, in terms of like a parenting thing. Like, I'm not saying he was holding them back. I think they might be a little more free because, truth be told, they have to be the leaders, both by example, both in the locker room. And, they kind of lucked out with Ime Udoka, who kind of just didn't give a crap about anything other than like, we've got to win our next game. Like, I may not know how to coach you the best, but I'm gonna make sure you're ready to win. You're not gonna get any excuses. Joe Mazzulla's different. I just hope they don't think that they're better than their coach in any way or too big. Like they just know what to do. They don't know what to do, right? Like there's a lot of learning, and this is a perfect year for that. No Marcus Smart. Like there's kind of nobody to fall back on to take their blame anymore.
Yeah. No,
It's
I think
really
that's
exciting. I'm
no,
excited.
it's 100%, 100%. I mean, I think that what's exciting about it, right, is if Porzingis stays healthy, which is one of the biggest ifs in the NBA, because as a Knicks fan, I fell through the trap. But to be fair to Porzingis, he's coming off his best season as a pro. I mean, he from efficiency standpoint, from an assist standpoint, from a point standpoint. I mean, he's a really difficult guard because again, he's 7'4", 7'3", and he's really mobile, really athletic. Like can put the ball on the ground, can shoot over the top of guys, and he's also like he's good in the post because he can shoot over the top of guys pretty easily. Like it's mostly just like jump shots or trying to get around guys. It's not like a physical post up player, but he scores very well down there. His numbers last year actually were really good, which I didn't think that was going to be the case because
Mm-hmm.
he's still pretty thin. But I do
He's
think the
bulking
one,
up.
yeah,
He's bulking up a little.
he's
I
too
saw he's
he's
already
too
at the gym in Boston.
yeah, but he's only
No,
too.
you're right. He's frail, he's a little frail and skinny, both in like mentality and like literally like his size. But
Yeah, but I think the one thing that I think is interesting about Boston overall is, again, I think with Boston, unfortunately, a lot of it was just like the mental focus with them. And whenever you like you talk and you just brought that point up, and I had to agree with it. It's just I would listen to all these analysts who I think are very good, and they would always bring up the same point. It's just too many threes, lack of mental focus. Like they don't come in with like a sense of urgency. They think they can just blow teams
mm-hmm.
out of the water, and they don't. Right? Like Miami, they go in thinking we're the more talented team, and then Jimmy Butler outplays them for 2 games. Then they go to game 3, get blasted, so they're down 3-0. Then they start turning the focus on. They actually get into a 3-3, and then game 7, the focus falls off. The pressure amounts, and I don't want to sit there because I hate the phrase like pressure, is the reason they lost. Like the reason they lost that game, frankly, was that they didn't defend with any sort of urgency. They couldn't, when they had a chance to blow open the game, they couldn't hit a three. And, that could just, again, and the problem is you can't, I know the NBA is all about the 3-point shot, and I get it, right? I think it expands spacing and everything like that. But my problem is you got to take it to the basket once in a while. And if Jaylen Brown refuses to learn a left hand And if Jason Tatum just wants to keep taking step back threes, Porzingis is going to get frustrated in that because he's going to be like, where's my role in this offense? Now, that's also on Joe Mazzulla. Like, how is he going to work Porzingis into that offense? Because Porzingis definitely needs to get the basketball, right? He can't just be what he was in Dallas, which is put him in the corner and hope that he hits some threes, right? Like Dallas used him incorrectly, right? Because they're like, let's just make him a pick and pop guy and have him just stand in the corner. Like Porzingis is more dynamic than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reason, and I'll say this because this might be a good way to end the thing, but my concern with Boston has always been that I don't trust them from a maturity standpoint to be able to overcome a Miami. Milwaukee, actually, they match up okay with because they can hit threes against Milwaukee's big
Milwaukee
size.
doesn't get out to the 3-point line. That's
the only
two
problem.
bigs, and yeah.
Lopez, just for how good he is as a rim protector, he doesn't defend the perimeter that well, as we saw with Jimmy Butler having the series of his life. But I think that Miami actually has been a team that's given them, challenges and trouble because they've actually beaten them in 2 of the 3 last Eastern Conference Finals because, Jimmy Butler, again, is a guy who's a very difficult player to guard just because he can do a lot of different things in the court. But Miami also can hit threes and they also can guard the three really well. So, Porzingis can be a guy that maybe can combat that lack of size Miami has. But at the end of the day, my only issue, the reason why I don't think Boston can beat a team like the Nuggets is because the Nuggets also have guys who can get out to the 3-point line, like Aaron Gordon, like, Bruce Brown, if he gets signed, you can go down the list, KCP, and Jokic showed better defensive ability in that finals than I thought that he did before, right? Jokic is just unreal. But I think that, like, that's my concern. So, like, I guess, what are your do you think that Boston should be the favorites in the Eastern Conference? And do you think that they'll actually live up to that? If you can try and keep that concise.
They're they're I know, I'm all over the place. They're definitely the favorites. It's not even close. Like I think it's pretty simple. They play smart basketball. They hit some threes. They don't even have to hit a lot. They probably win a game, right? Like if they do that. Here's the thing, like Jaylen Brown, it's very clear what he has to work on this offseason. Jason Tatum, honestly, I thought he was playing pretty smart basketball game the last 5 games of the last 4 games, last 4 games of that Miami series, and all playoffs. I thought he was pretty good, even in his worst games. I mean, you can see his progression, right? Even in his worst games, he's rebounding now, at least. Like he's some form of assist, some
And he's
defense.
facilitating.
Yeah, a little bit, right? Like I mean, he could work on that a little. I think we have some really good what do you call it, lineups, like groups of 5, lineups where we can space the floor. I think Derek White is a little bit better than Marcus Smart at beating the first man, beating his man and then dishing. So like if you have Porzingis and Al Horford on the court, or even just Porzingis as your big man, and then you have Brogdon, White, Brown, Tatum, you're going to get some open looks. None of it matters because inevitably we're going to find ourselves in some close games. That's where we've got to buckle up and figure it out. That's where I don't think Joe Mazzulla's number strategy is the most effective. And that will be, I think Porzingis' postgame will help that. I think the Jays' progression will help that. But like the one thing I get annoyed about is like Jaylen Brown, unbelievable mid-range shooter. Jason Tatum, probably like I don't see it much, but pretty unbelievable mid-range shooter. Like I don't know why we forget to do that. I'm hoping somehow Porzingis maybe being out in the corner, pulling the big man away or whatever. We shoot more mid-range because one, and Joe Mazzulla should know this, it's pretty statistically accurate when you shoot closer to the basket, right? So like we got to get back to a little more mid-range, like, and I think the spacing can help with that. I mean, the one thing that annoyed me, and I know it's Mazzulla's first year, and I mean, he's new and stuff, but like when I would watch Celtics on offense, they would have everyone spaced out on the perimeter, which I love. They're all perimeter shooters, and the movement's fine. It's whatever. But when I would watch the Heat on offense, 4 Heat players would stand in the corner, and Jimmy Butler would have half the 3-point, half the court, half of the half court to go 1v1 against someone. And like the other 4 players are Kevin Love and 3 shooters. So like you've got 4 people that can like maybe because I don't play basketball or like I don't watch enough or I don't know what I'm talking about. That doesn't seem hard to do. Can we not just get people out of the way, have Tatum or Brown ISO, and like if they send help, which they're going to need to do because those guys cannot be stopped 1v1 once Jalen Brown learns how to dribble again. Like, can we do some sort of spacing like that? It doesn't seem like it's rocket science.
You gotta leave Jalen Brown alone, man. He can't dribble.
Oh, I love the guy. I'm all like, give me a few more
I
days.
agree with you that his handle needs to get better, but
But he's a
I
good player. Like, I don't know many shooting guards. I think he's
he's
better
second
than
team All
like.
NBA. He's a very good player.
Oh, but speaking of all NBA, that new rule contract is coming for us. That is coming for us. Oh man.
I know.
I mean, I place him ahead of like a Bradley Beal. I think he's a little better. I mean, I think Paul George has a better package, but like I think Jalen Brown's played better than Paul George lately.
The only shooting guards I take over Jalen Brown are probably Booker and
Booker for sure. I mean,
Mitchell.
Booker's a superstar. Jalen Brown
Yeah,
is too, but like not that
yeah.
top.
Booker for sure, and then like Mitchell's a toss up just because Mitchell has proven that he can be a number one on the team. But
They're both inconsistent. Like Mitchell's
exactly,
probably better than Brown at his best, but his best is not,
he's not always there,
I
right?
don't think we see it enough. Wait, can I actually ask you a question? I just want to know your thoughts about the Knicks. One, I heard the Knicks were a potential team to engage in trade talks with James Harden. I want to know what your thoughts are on that, whether it's accurate or not. I can't really see the Knicks having the assets, but
They don't have the assets for that, and also I would not want him in New York. Not because I don't think he's a good player. I just don't think we need him. We have Jalen Brunson. We don't need James Harden.
no, I mean
Uh,
he's a great player, but like you sign James Harden, you basically sign away your rights to competing for the championship, in my opinion. And like I hate to be so mean to him, but I've just watched him so much. Amazing player.
explain that more. I'm not a big James Harden playoff guy either. It's not because I don't think he's one of the greater scorers that I was ever played in this game. It's not because I don't think he's hasn't when he was in Houston wasn't not a terrific player. He was unbelievable, right? It's just
Unbelievable.
unfortunately you saw in that Boston series. The issue is again for me is he did give you 2 games of 40. Like where's Embiid? Like where's his production besides Game 5? Like he didn't really show. And maybe it's the injuries. I don't know, but like unfortunately, it's always the case. But yeah, I mean, I
Well, he
think
was injured. He was injured.
he was
Um,
definitely injured. I mean, he was definitely hobbled. I'm not going to sit there and say he wasn't, right? And
he wasn't as injured as like they made it out to be though. Like you could tell they were definitely creating a cushion for them losing this series. But like anyway,
but yeah, to answer your question, a concise thing, I wouldn't want James Harden because we have Jalen Brunson, and Jalen Brunson has proven, I think, to be an elite
might be
level,
more effective.
in a very elite level point guard. And again, he put up 40 in a Game 6 loss to Miami. I mean, he was the reason we were in that game. Miami didn't really have an answer for him, and this guy, is just very smart and crafty and figures out it. And look, the big thing with the Knicks is, we have to get shooting, which we don't have, and we have to get Julius Randle to develop
Yeah.
the right hand. If Julius Randle develops a right hand, kind of similar to Jalen Brown develops a left hand. At least Jalen Brown's proven in the
Yes.
playoffs to at least have some success. Like Julius Randle hasn't had success because he doesn't have the mid-range game that Brown has, and then also he can't drive to his right hand and lay the ball in the
Mm-hmm.
basket. And I get that he like I root for him, but it's just a lot of times I sit there and I'm like, look, you're gonna get a great regular season from him, and then you're gonna get you're gonna get like 23, 10, and 6, but then the playoffs you'll get like 15, 10, and 4 or 5 turnovers. It's just like that's not what I want. But I do think the day ended this way, and then you can get any final comments you want. I do think that what's interesting about both the things we talked about is that you kind of look at like in the sense that how the evolution of soccer is changing with Messi, but how like you're looking at guys like Porzingis and Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren and like the evolution of
Yeah.
these players, and it's crazy to see like a 7'3" guy, be able to be a valuable member of a team to their offense and defense and being able to not be a liability, right? Like you would think like a guy at Porzingis' size or Wembanyama's size would be a liability, and no one's talking about it like that. They're just talking about health and durability with these guys, and which is a very very fair concern because they're very skinny and it's a very physical game in the NBA. But I don't think Boston fans should be concerned about it. Like but I just thought I had mixed feelings about it because I liked Marcus Smart for that team, but I think the big thing, and you can tell me if you agree with this to end it off. I just think this is a big year for Joe Mazzulla to really figure out what he can do I think he did a great job in the regular season, to be fair with him. And I do think he did okay in the first two series. I think he made some really smart adjustments against Philly. In the Miami series, even though he won those 3 games, he was completely outcoached by Eric Spoelstra. And I think for him to take that next step, he's got to learn from that and figure out ways to, with this new team, to make the difference. But what do you think about what Joe Mazzulla needs to do for his second year to end off this podcast?
I feel like I'm like Stephen A. Smith or Nick Wright or someone stupid on television when I say this, but he's got to win a title. Like, I mean, he's got to make the finals.
That's not a
That's
stupid
not
statement.
like,
Ime Udoka was there a year before.
hmm?
So that's not stupid. Ime Udoka was there before.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like one, we didn't have to sign him. I feel like didn't we sign him in the middle of the year, like long term? Like he kind of just was like interim to begin, like like free slate, like whatever. Let's see what you can do. We signed him a little early. Again, by the way, trust in Brad Stevens all the way. Like I think that is a perfect role for him, Brad Stevens. I think he's done a great job. Um, like he did say something that I really loved and that gave me a lot of optimism where there wasn't much at the time. He said we had a bad playoff run. Like, yes, we got to game 7 of the finals. Yes, we came back from 3-0, came back from 3-2. Um, it wasn't good. Like Atlanta shouldn't have taken us to 6. A lot of credit. Trae Young really like grew on me. Like I actually like really, really respect him. But that should have been a sweep. Philly, I know this is like a little outrageous. Could have been a sweep. Game 1, you got to win without Embiid at home. Like I'm actually, yeah, got to win that without. And then I don't know if you watch Game 4. We go to Philly,
Watched every game.
up 5, right? Like a few minutes left. It reminds me of being up 5 against the Warriors, Game 4 in the finals to go up 3-1. Like that's where like Joe Mazzulla's got to figure it out, and it's definitely not necessarily his fault because it's happened under 3 different coaches now where we can't win clutch games. But either he has to figure out how to win, you know, clutch games and get to the finals, or win the title. I think the roster is too good to give too much time to coaches, especially one that's going to be in his second season. Like I don't know, it's hard because I really like Joe Mazzulla, and I think he's a great coach. I'm not sure if he's the type of coach Jason Brown or Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown need. Um, I think they thrived under tough love. I don't know who would give them tough love. Looking at the coaches out there,
I mean, it could have been like a Nick Nurse or a Monty Williams, but they've
I
already.
would have loved Nick Nurse. I would have really
I think
loved
it's a
Nick
really good
Nurse.
hire for Philly, by the way. But James Harden doesn't seem
Oh,
to get
I
it.
forgot. I forgot Philly hired him. I really like. I would have loved Nick Nurse, but basically Marcus Smart to end it off. Like, if Celtics fans ran the organization, like we wouldn't have moved anyone because we're so we love to harp on them, but like we're so biased. Like you know what I mean? Like we think we've got the best players, and I'm a victim of that, but I try to like be a little more real in the sense that like more blame has to go to Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. Even though Jason Tatum's putting up numbers, like it kind of annoys me that his bad game, like Philly, he has what? I think he had 7 points. He had 7 point. Was it 7 points? And then he just scored 16, or he had
Right.
3 points. He had 3 points in the fourth quarter.
He had one. He had one field goal through 3 quarters. Yes.
And then yes, like I kind of like I'm so happy we won that game. I wanted to beat Philly. I think we own Philly personally. Like I don't think it could have gotten
You guys
easier.
definitely have owned Philly the last few years. Absolutely.
Right, which isn't saying much because they're not a great playoff team. I mean, if you can't win with Jimmy Butler and Embiid and Ben Simmons at the time, probably whatever. Where was I going with this? I'm just upset that Jason Tatum like bails himself out sometimes because like he gets away with a lot. People don't really criticize him. I mean, he got away with that finals performance. And don't get me wrong, I'm bought in. Like I want him to stay for his career. Like we're gonna build around him and hopefully Jalen Brown too. I'm bought in on him too. First bad series, we'll let it slide. But unfortunately, like Jason Tatum is on this pedestal, and to the point where Jalen Brown is literally being talked about being traded. Like that's ridiculous. I don't think Curry won. I don't think anyone won their first ring till about 26, 27. And it's hard because they are young. They are 26 and 24. And Tatum's 24, 25. But like Jalen Brown, this is like his seventh or eighth season. It's been a long time. Like I'll keep trusting in slow progression. But yeah, Joe Mazzulla, 1 year title, or I think we move on to someone that has won a title. I mean, Nick Nurse has won a title. Like I wouldn't say he's like miles better than Missoula, but like he has more identity. I don't know if Missoula necessarily has an identity yet. It's hard. It's been 1 year.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see. I don't know. I'll give him 1 year because like we just moved Marcus Smart to keep and kept Missoula. Like you get 1 year after that.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think that's outrageous to say because you had Ime Udoka get to a finals in his first year. And look, having Ime Udoka, I think he's actually going to do really good things for Houston just because I think he'll be able to hold that young team accountable and actually build defense because Houston did not play a lick of defense last year. But
No.
I think the one thing I'll say is that it's always a pleasure talking to you. I think that for those who tune into our podcast, it's always just like it sounds like a rambling dining room conversation, which is I think is fun and
Yeah.
because it's always good to have those kind of chats. But I want to say personally, because I haven't obviously seen you that much, like always a pleasure to have you on and talk soccer and talk Boston sports, whatever you kind of feeling to talk about. And obviously we can always do this again when time arises. So always appreciate it, Alex. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, and also like you said rambling and whatnot, but like I feel like that was mainly me. Like you can tell you've done this a lot longer. Like you're more like organized with your thoughts and concise, and I'm just like just think about one Celtics problem, and I'm like, oh, here's six more that I should talk about. Like,
Yeah, you sound like a Boston fan. That's fine with me.
yeah, but yeah, definitely. It was really fun though being in the city for all the games. Let's definitely not talk about the hockey, but the basketball got a little further than the hockey. So, but it's good.
Both
No,
lost to
thank you
Florida teams though, which is kind of ironic.
to Florida teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, but both Florida teams lost 4-1 in the finals and bored all the viewers. So,
Yeah.
no, I'm kidding. They were special. They were really special.
So, well, thanks again. And, for those who tuned in, this is Alex Shammerizadi, former men's soccer player for Amherst. Been to a couple national championship games and now lives in Boston. So, Alex, again, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll definitely do this again soon.
For sure. Yep. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.